Meritocracy is a belief system in which hard work and talent leads to success. This means that those at the top and the bottom both deserve their place in society. This is potentially harmful because we do not live in a perfectly meritocratic world. Those with class privilege or wealth are more likely to succeed because of the resources that were available to them from the beginning. Those who are not part of the middle or upper class suffer because of their socioeconomic status holds them back from achieving success. For example, students with work ethic and intelligence might not be able to pay for college, have the means of obtaining a good education, and live in an environment that discourages further academic careers. On the other hand, there are students without these qualities that can go to college because they have enough money to go to college even though they didn't try as hard in high school.
In The Perils of Meritocracy, Garber states, "The logic of meritocracy as a concept endorses a world in which economic success carries a moral valence, and in which, as a consequence, the lack of such success implies a kind of moral failing. This is why it can be so harmful for those who are portrayed at the bottom. The common practice ideology would claim that the ones at the bottom are morally failing." Garber also points out that meritocracy is just an ideal concept that is romantic rather than realistic. It is a concept that is so romanticized in Hollywood films, where the lower-class underdog is not only able to rise to success, but manages to outwit his superiors with his intelligence and integrity. But this doesn't seem to be the case outside of the movies. It is evident that meritocracy is indeed a myth, and that it is a concept found in Hollywood films, but not in real life.
According to meritocracy, this would deem them as being hardworking and deserving of their abundance. It doesn't take into consideration that their wealth has pushed them forward in terms of education, positive lifestyle, and possibly professional connections. Many opportunities continue to be based on family income, family background, and who do you know. On the other hand, people of color are depicted as living in poverty. According to the ideals of meritocracy, those who live in poverty are deserving of their burdens because they are lazy or have no skill. This creates a vicious cycle because when minorities are associated with laziness, the general population develops racist and discriminatory ideologies. An example is when Coach Carter, the children from the urban school system are depicted as violent, involved with dealing drugs, teen pregnancy, and disrespectful towards authorities.
When schools are funded based on income tax, this leads to schools in low-income areas with a lack of books, programs, and other educational tools. This inequality leaves kids in poorer schools at a disadvantage. This leads to low graduation rates and an unpromising future for students from poor backgrounds.
What about this? We were discussing the Holocaust. No, they won't be able to read that. Well, we can try. The books are just sitting here.
Look at their reading scores. And if I give your kids these books, I'll never see them again. If I do, they'll be damaged.
What about these? Romeo and Juliet. That's a great gang story.
No, not the books. This is what we give them. It is Romeo and Juliet, but it's a condensed version. But even these, look how they treat them. See how torn up they are? They draw on them.
Miss Campbell, they know they get these because no one thinks they're smart enough for real books.
I don't have the budget to buy new books every semester when these kids don't return them.
So what do? Buy their books myself?
That's up to you, but you'll be wasting your money.
Is there someone else I can speak to about this?
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, but I don't understand.
In the 3 Miles podcast, we learn the story of a student named Jonathan, a poor, hardworking high school student who received a scholarship to attend Wheaton College. Although Jonathan put effort into his studies, he oftentimes did not believe he deserved to go to college, a thought that his foster mother embedded into his brain at a young age. Jonathan was unable to succeed in college because he could not afford the required books for his classes. The embarrassment of being the only black student and not being able to afford the materials eventually led him to dropping out. This podcast uses Jonathan's story as a perfect example of how flawed meritocracy is. While meritocracy states that any hardworking and able person can achieve success despite their background, Jonathan's background is the exact reason he ended up failing out of school. It is very bothersome that a hardworking individual who is capable of doing great things is held back from succeeding because they do not have the financial means to do so. Jonathan should have been given the means and support to succeed because with that, he would have believed in himself. The article, Why the Myth of Meritocracy Hurts Kids of Color, truly encompasses Jonathan's situation. It says, if you're inclined to believe that things are the way they should be, and that system is fair, then you're maybe going to accept stereotypes about you more easily. Jonathan accepted the situation he was in and allowed himself to believe that he was not worthy of the amazing achievement he had been given through the scholarship to Wheaton. His self-doubts led to his rejection of the system of meritocracy because the situation he was in made him believe he was not capable of succeeding. Meritocracy is completely invalidated in our eyes after listening to Jonathan's story. A memorable statement was made at the end of the podcast which stated, "Education is the way to cross class barriers, but education is the barrier." A man with talent, drive, and ability became a college dropout because of a system that stripped him of what he truly deserved. This educational barrier created by the idea of meritocracy sent Jonathan back to the poor life he lived with his unsupportive mother, all because he could not afford a textbook.
The idea of meritocracy is solely a myth depicted in films, as those with the inner determination and intelligence to get ahead are held back by their socioeconomic status and lack of opportunities. Movies show students of color in a negative light. They are shown at the bottom, surrounded by poverty and violence, with no drive to pursue an education. As a result, this is how the general population perceives students of color. Knowing that meritocracy is a false idea, in the future we will watch movies through a lens free of racist ideologies.